Yes.
Howdy, howdy. It's XLII. Welcome to the Disruptive Technology Hangout. And today we're going to be talking about our vision for the future of replacing the workforce with robots. Super exciting stuff. The technology is pretty much all there. It's just a matter of having the will to implement what exists, and that is the trick, because it's really a mindset that's prevented all this robotic technology from already being implemented. So Larry, I'll just pass it over to you to kind of introduce. Well, actually, I should introduce you first. This is my partner. Yes, I'm XLII, and with me, as always, is my partner, Larry. And Larry is the VP of Development for King Sunshine Solar Systems and TK Environmental. And he has been inventing and being an acting as an entrepreneur for like over a decade. He has patented technology that helped build company Suncast Polyurethanes into $1 million enterprise, and he has new patents with our startup company, which you can check out on his site at kingsss.ca and learn more about our own disruptive technology that we are attempting, well, that we are bringing to the marketplace. But when you try something that's never been done before, there's always a lot of failure involved, trial and error. And so we've been testing and tweaking our technology since we came up with the idea just over 5 years ago. And so we're close to a breakthrough where we'll actually be able to offer you and people around the world this technology as a way of changing the way that we use energy. So basically, it's a combined heat and solar device that uses both the heat and light from the sun to generate electricity, as well as create a powerful heat source. So you can check that out at kingsss.ca, but or we weren't able to do our tests. There was some parts that we needed to get a hold of or whatever to be able to do our solar test, so that didn't happen over the weekend. And so today we are going to be talking about our vision for robots. I'm just kind of waiting for Larry to come back on here, but I'll just give my perspective on it. For those of you who aren't aware, we live in a world, especially in North America, where there is controlled media, which basically means that pretty much every radio station, television, broadcast company, newspaper, magazine are basically all owned by a handful of people. And those people have a monopoly on the information that we receive. The internet has gone a long way to disrupt that plan for controlling our minds through media. And so, but along the way, the internet's kind of a recent development. And so along the way, people have been led into this mindset of lack, basically, that there's not enough to go around. And that's part of the stumbling block that exists with replacing the workforce with robots. Like I say, the technology already exists to pretty much do it. However, the will is not there. Because people live in a scarcity mindset, people have this fear of loss. When it comes to this concept, they think, well, what will I do? A robot's going to come and take my job, and I'm not going to have to dig this ditch anymore. And what am I going to do with myself? And people just don't know what the possibilities are for all of humanity. If we were to actually implement our vision and replace the entire workforce with robots, that would free up people's time to spend doing the things that they love. And with me, I think the very first and most important place to implement this concept is to start with the most dangerous jobs that people have out there. People every day risk their lives for a paycheck in order to be able to support their family and their desires and goals in life, they put their lives on the line and at risk. And there's no reason why a robot cannot be up on a roof pounding nails, or on a scaffold, putting up windows or whatever it may be. And there's all these dangerous jobs that people do that could be accomplished by robotic technology. However, all around the globe, there's this fear, and that comes from the scarcity mentality that I won't be able to support my family. I won't be able to make any money if a robot comes and does this job that I'm doing. Although I hate it, it's hard on my body and my health, and it's dangerous, and I'm putting my life at risk. I need to make money, and without this job, if there's a robot doing my job, I'll just perish because I won't have money to pay my bills. And that's just really not the truth. If you look around, there's an abundance of every resource that we could possibly ever imagine. And those resources are constantly being replenished by our awesome Mother Earth, because that's just the way that it works. It's, if you really open your eyes to see what's actually going on around you, it's a cycle of renewal that goes on in nature around the globe. And so that should tell you that there's nothing to there's no reason to accept this scarcity that's been programmed into you. The truth of the matter is that there's abundance for everyone. So I'm kind of wondering why Larry hasn't come back on, but whatever, I can keep talking because I got a lot to say about this. So the second major obstacle that I see in making our vision a reality, replacing the workforce with robots. There's that scarcity, that fear of loss of what will I do for work? I won't have a job. Ridiculous as that is. We'll get into that more. But the second thing is that through the controlled media, there has been this programming that has allowed many of us to settle into a deep fear of technology, because of like science fiction shows and stuff that have this premise where robots suddenly take on this artificial intelligence and rebel against the people and start wreaking havoc and taking over our society and like doing all this crazy stuff. Well, the fact of the matter is that a robot is just a machine, and it really is not able to do anything that it's not programmed to do. So that whole premise is really far-fetched and quite ridiculous, in my personal opinion. However, it's pervasive. A lot of people have grasped on to that idea that robots could potentially harm humanity in some way, shape, or form. And that potential actually does exist. However, it's not the way that they show it in these science fiction stories. The potential for robots to do evil only comes from the potential of evil people creating the robots, programming them, the robots to do something that's like immoral or that could harm humans. The robots, they're machines. I say it again, they are machines. They don't have free will, and they're not able to accomplish anything that they haven't been programmed to do. So by simply keeping the robots in the hands of the good people, who will only program the robots to serve humanity and not to cause any damage or chaos or wreak havoc in any way, shape, or form, then there's no problem. But already today we are seeing that there are forces of evil that are using this technology in a destructive way. The example of drones that are able to like fly remotely and like release bombs or missiles and like just destroy people, that's already happening. And that this answer to fighting that is just being informed about who's behind it. And oh boy, I can really like get into a lot about who's really behind the evil that does exist on the planet. In this internet marketing awesomeness that I found, this community of entrepreneurs that are putting all their efforts into making money online, there are so many people that are ready to take up this fight against the forces of evil. And they have these like major events with like thousands of people, and they call it Fight the Forces of Evil. And from my study and experience, what I realize is that you are not able to fight something unless you identify it. It's like solving a problem. You're not able to solve the problem until you admit you have one. Like that's one of the first steps, I think, in like the 12-step programs that like Alcoholic Anonymous and other groups use, the 12-step program. Like the first program is, or the first step of all those programs is admitting that there's a problem. So in order to fight the forces of evil effectively, we have to identify what those forces are and focus our thinking on solutions. There's all this like positive thinking mentality that goes around. It's like, just think positive and you know, life's gonna be great. And there is something to be said for that. Positive thinking is very, very important. However, positive thinking doesn't solve anything unless it's directed towards solutions. And how can you direct your thinking positively towards a solution if you haven't identified a problem? It doesn't work. It's like incongruent. The steps don't mesh. There's no fighting the forces of evil unless you know what the forces of evil are. Like in the example, like you have to know what you're fighting for or what you're fighting against. Like I think the example of Nazi Germany, I think that their soldiers, their army, all their military forces, I don't think they were really aware of what the fight was about. I think they were powerfully manipulated, as many of us are today, to believe that there was this enemy that didn't really exist. And that happens all the time today. But there is an enemy that does exist, and we need to identify that and focus on solving that problem. And so the first step, I think, in creating our vision is being able to understand the forces that are against that vision coming to reality. And there are people in this world that have immense wealth and power that actually, like, wealthy and powerful people are awesomely great. They do way more good than evil in the world, but there's a small percentage of people that are against this idea. They do not want people free. They do not want to free people from cleaning toilets and pounding nails, because by allowing people to participate in this like modern day slavery where they're doing all this labor, all this work that could be done by robots easily, by keeping those people in those situations, in those jobs, it prevents them from having the free time to be able to use their mind powerfully and to be thinking about and seeing what's really going on, to be catching on to the evil that exists out there. People are totally, totally blind to it because we're all self-absorbed. Very few of us, I'm so fortunate that I have the time and the wherewithal to actually sit down and think about things. And your thoughts are only as good as the questions that you ask. And so I've been able to have the free time to be able to ask important questions. And I haven't always been able to get the answers, but I have gathered enough information that I feel really confident that there are a small segment of wealthy and powerful people that want to prevent people from having the time and financial freedom that robots could potentially give to all of humanity. There's no possible way for people to be aware of the reality of what goes on behind closed doors in the secret shadow government that does exist. My research has proven to me that it exists. And if you take the time, if you make the time and do your own research, I'm pretty sure you're going to come to the same conclusion as me, that there are people out there in high positions that want to enforce this modern day slavery. And the reason that they want to keep this modern day slavery going is to prevent us from being able to think clearly, to prevent us from being able to ask important questions that will allow us to discover problems and start focusing positive thinking on solutions. So there's so much work to be done. So it's really, really exciting to know that there's more people that are working towards this goal than working against us. Way more people really do want to find a better way. Way more people realize that their dangerous job could be done by a robot, which would free them to be at home with their family, maybe painting or fishing or doing some activity that they love to do every day, instead of slaving away for money at something that they don't enjoy doing. And so when you see that as a problem, most people don't see it as a problem. They see it as, this is just the way that it is. This is the job that I've been trained to do, and I'm just going to do it and be successful. Because the definition of success in our modern culture, which has been programmed into us, is to just be mediocre. There's, the success formula that we're given as we go through the North American education system is go to school, work hard, get good grades, work even harder to get, educated for your job, your career that you're going to have, and then go and work as hard as you can at that career. And people come to the age of retirement and they realize that they fulfilled the success of that plan, but they've only reached mediocrity. And so they see other people that chose a different path to be business owners that just have way more freedom and way more financial resources at the end of a time period of a person's career. And so people are wising up all over the world that there's this like conspiracy to the master plan to keep down the working man. It really does exist. And like I say, it's a very, very small group of people that have implemented this structure of our society that doesn't allow people freedom to follow the things that they're most passionate about in life, and leaves people feeling somewhat empty at the end of their careers. Oftentimes, people will be loyal and dedicated to a company that may go out of business, or they'll be loyal and dedicated to a company that may downsize. And I've heard so many stories of people just being thrown out of jobs that they thought that they would live their whole career in, to discover that their success plan that they were taught and that they followed to the T hasn't led them to the land of milk and honey that they were promised or that they hoped for. So by bringing in robots to do some of the more tedious jobs that human beings have to do, we will free so many people up and give them the time to think and to use their brain in order to create more ideas, making the world a better place, because that's what being a human is all about. It's about advancement, and it's about making things better for everyone, not just a select group, but for all the people. And, there's always been an abundance of resources, way more resources than what people could ever exhaust. And yet, at the same time, this controlled media keeps everybody in this culture of like fear that there's not enough. And there's always been more than enough. Where the problem comes in is that there's not any sort of will to distribute those resources equally at all. Not even a little bit. There's no will to do that. And the people at the like very, very top, the people that have generational wealth that's existed for hundreds and hundreds of years, they have been able to manipulate the rest of us to believe that there's not enough, to be selfish and greedy, and to focus on what's best for us individually instead of looking collectively at the community. Like, that's how humans have survived to this point, is by living collectively, by creating community. And today this controlled media programming is doing absolutely everything that it possibly can, and quite successfully in a lot of cases, to manipulate people into believing that there's not enough available for all the people. There's this whole culture of people that have bought into this false premise that we're overpopulated, that there's too many people on Earth to be sustained, and that's just not true. It's what the problem is, not the amount of people or the amount of resources. The problem is the mismanagement. The problem is the people that have hoarded resources to themselves and mismanaged them, preventing other people from being able to advance. And it's like this scale that we're like sliding down, because 100 years ago, there was a lot of opportunity for an average person to make an advancement. 50 years ago, there was less, but there's still a lot more than there is today. But at the same time, there's more than ever today. The only reason that we see that our opportunities are diminishing is because they're programming us to believe that that's true, even though there's no basis for it. So I'm just really curious why Larry hasn't hopped back on here. I'm going to try to send him a message and see what has happened to him. I don't know if he sent me any message or anything like that. I'm just going to have a look. And he doesn't have anything to say. So I'm not too sure where he went to or if he'll come back. But anyway, I can just keep talking. We've had technical difficulties on several of these. There was one where I kept falling off, and this time Larry seems to be falling off on us, so I'm not too sure why he hasn't come back. But anyway, yeah, so super, super excited about this vision, because I really believe the possibilities already exist, and it's just a matter of implementation. So in order to implement the plan, Larry is currently like gathering resources as far as human relations go. So looking for and searching for people that have expertise with robotics that will be able to aid us in creating this vision. So basically, Larry and myself don't really know anything about robots, other than probably what you know from the programming, from what we've seen on TV and heard about and looked on the internet and researched a bit. And we know that the technology is available. And so the question that has inspired us to do some of these hangouts is that, why isn't this being implemented faster? The resources are there, the technology is there, and what we've come up with is that there's a lack of will. And part of that is coming from certain leadership at the top, but most of it is coming from regular that have been programmed by the controlled media and manipulated by the people at the top to believe that it's a pipe dream, to believe that it will cause us some kind of harm in the long run, because, you know, the robots eventually will gain their own brand of intelligence and start causing wars or something crazy like that. Like, we're not doing that good enough on our own without help from robots. We've done it forever without any help from robots, so I don't really see how that how one has anything to do with the other. And then also they've manipulated us by creating this lack mentality, which makes us believe, oh my gosh, this robot's going to take my job and then my family's going to starve, or whatever it is. It's a systematic mind control that's implemented on people all over the planet, all around the world, to just keep us in a state of fear. And the thing is about fear is that fear is like a paralyzing force. And so they study it. They like fund these major research projects, learning about our brains and how we operate and how we make decisions, and using that information against us to keep us in a state of fear, because they know that fear paralyzes us and prevents us from taking action. So where you could get a whole group of people together wanting to implement robotic technology and replace all these dangerous jobs with that are being done by humans with robots. You can get a huge group of people together willing and wanting to do that if it wasn't for all the fear. So many people are afraid. They maybe have had the same idea and aren't able to even talk about it because they're afraid people think they're crazy. And then in our case, I think even like for me and Larry, there's like some level of fear of taking action. Like, we're in the talking stage for sure, but as far as contacting these robotic experts and putting together this mastermind to bring our vision to reality, there's like a fear in the background that, you know, it won't work, that it's like too big of an undertaking, that, you know, we know that people don't have the will to make that happen. And so it's a matter of, I think, first changing hearts and minds to be able to see the vision and grab a hold of it and want to follow us to its fruition. So definitely that's like the first stage is changing hearts and minds. So getting other people to think the same way that we're thinking, and then taking that thinking as a group and then creating action around the ideas. So I'm just going to take a look at my email and see if I can find out what happened to Larry. So yeah, there's no sign of him. I don't know what he could be doing. Just see here. No message from him. So I don't know what that tells me. I don't know. I guess maybe he's not going to join me for the rest of this, which is unfortunate because he's kind of the expert. He knows a lot more about this stuff than I do. Let me see here. So anyway, I don't know what else I can really say about that. Kind of at a loss here. Because really, this is like Larry's vision. I'm all for it. I'm like so excited about getting a robot that will clean my toilets. Like, I really want that. I have so much better things to do than clean my toilet, and just like so many other things. Growing up as a kid, watching the Jetsons, it's like, when are we going to get those Visa phones, a video? I think they called it a Visa phone on the thing. And now we have Google Hangouts, which is like, and Skype calls, which is basically the same thing, right? And then, you know, they had Rosie, the robot maid, and it's like, when am I going to get that? So it's got to be coming soon, right? And then, of course, George with his flying car, that's got to wonder how come that's not here yet. But eventually, you know, all these things that people have thought of are potentially there in our future. It's just a matter of the right people latching onto that idea and taking action and making it a reality. So all that awesome stuff is coming, and super exciting to know that it's coming and to be like kind of on the cutting edge of disruptive technology, because definitely robotics has already been a disruptive force as far as technology is concerned. For sure, people have been affected by robots already. Like in major factories, there's already lots of people that used to have a job on a factory floor that is now being performed by a robot. And what happened to those people? Like, do they just like fall down and die? No, they move on to other things, for sure. All these robots that we intend to create, that we intend to have a hand in creating and implementing, all the things that they're doing, the people that are doing them now will like move on to bigger and better things. Like the robots will initially need to be built by people. Eventually we have a vision of seeing robots being built by other robots and just creating a system that perpetuates itself. But those robots, even if they are built by other robots, will need to be programmed by humans. There will be all kinds of new jobs that we haven't even thought of that will come up and in the future, with robots doing like manual type labor. People will be free to pursue like art or music or like sports or all these other things that right now are hobbies, can be like our daily action, our daily schedule and ritual and routine. Could include the things that we're passionate about and that we love, instead of like hammering nails on some job site, which could easily be done by a machine. So it's super exciting to think that this will happen in the future, because we want it to, because everybody really does want it. It's just they don't understand how they've been programmed. And as more and more people break free from their programming and start recognizing the actual abundance that surrounds them, and stop complaining about, you know, all these things that are outside of their control, and start taking action on the things that are within our control, as that starts happening more and more, it's like a snowball effect. Like as the snowball rolls down the hill, it gets bigger and it collects more snow, and it goes faster, and it's just like this thing that kind of gets out of control. And that can be a really good thing when it's moving in a positive direction, with lots of will from people. Then it easily can create something beyond anything that we ever imagined even possible. Like if you were to bring someone from like the 1800s and bring them here to like the reality that we have now, they would be in like complete shock of the way that we live. Like cell phones and GPS and all these like devices. When you think about in the 1800s, like what it took just to create a map for someone, like for an early explorer going out there, like walking, counting their footsteps and pacing out like the distances between landmarks and stuff, and trying to create a map out of that, what was required for that, compared to what we have now with GPS, where you can like the whole globe is just mapped, and at the click of a button at your fingertips is the ability to measure and plan a route to go like absolutely anywhere on the planet, and it's at our fingertips. It's like people would have never imagined that to be possible. If you were to like tell someone from the 1800s, you know, one day we're going to have the whole globe mapped, and at the press of a button you're going to be able to see, you know, the entire landscape on a screen in front of you, they would have been like, you're crazy. Like, or if you think of like Marconi, who's like responsible for a lot of this technology, he discovered radio waves and was able to transmit sound from like one location to another. Like all of our television broadcasting technology, all of our radio stations, like all our cell phones, all this stuff came from what Marconi discovered. And when he made that discovery and was able to broadcast the sound of a human voice, his friends threw him in a mental institution. They're like, he's hearing voices. The guy's crazy. They seriously locked him up in a mental institution. And so yeah, definitely if you're listening to me talking on this, you might be thinking that she is crazy, but you know what, I know deep within my heart, with all the research that Larry's done and all the things that he's shared with me about how quickly the technology is progressing, I know that this vision that he has is can totally be achieved, and that together we're like making it happen. Just by putting our thoughts out there, it's allowing other people to develop more ideas that will create that snowball effect, so that more and more people will change their hearts and minds to realize that, yeah, you know what? I think it would be better to have a robot doing this tedious task that I don't want to do. Like totally, we all have things in our lives that we don't enjoy doing. And if we can have a robot do it for us, totally, who wouldn't love that? Of course, we all want that. We all love that. But it's just a matter of deprogramming ourselves from this like scarcity mentality and from these ideas that bad things could happen. Because like bad things already do happen. So it's, one thing doesn't really have anything to do with the other. Like as far as, it's difficult though, because we have all been programmed with these movies and books and comics and stuff that have told us, you know, this could all go, this technology stuff could really all go awry and like bite us in the butt at some point in the future. Well, the more we think about that happening, the more likely it is going to happen. The focus should be on how robotics can serve humanity. And in order to be able to be focused on robots serving us, we have to lose the fear. We have to lose the fear of robots stealing our job. We have to lose the fear of robots getting minds of their own somehow, and creating free will and turning against us and somehow, you know, destroying all the humans. Like, the more I think about that stuff, the more likely it is to happen. The more we focus on the progressive aspect of it, of how it's going to make our lives better, the more the technology will make our lives better. And I think it's kind of sad that right now that a lot of this technology is being hoarded by like military installations and stuff, and being used for a truly evil purpose, like drones going and bombing places. Like, I don't care if they're bombing bad people. There's no reason to be bombing anybody. That's why there's a legal system, a justice system, is so that people can be held accountable for their actions, not just like retaliation of like, okay, well, your people did this to our people, so we're just gonna bomb you. No, those people should be like arrested and given their day in court. Like, that's a civilized way to deal with things. And so for me, it's like really frustrating that I don't have a robot cleaning my toilet, but the military has robots like flying around dropping bombs on people. Like, that's just, the technology is being misused and the resources are being misallocated, and we the people are allowing it to happen because we have let go of control of our own thought process. We've allowed television and media to program our thoughts, not to be what we want them to be, but to be manipulated to serve somebody else's evil purpose. Like, so many people are all for drone strikes. They're like, this is what has to be done. We have an enemy to fight, and this is blah, 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 blah. And, you know, if you were to take a step back and look at what you're really doing, the destruction that's really happening, and how we're all supporting and allowing it to happen, like support our troops, support our troops. Well, I do support those people, but I don't support what they're doing. Like, waging war serves no one. It destroys people. It destroys hearts and minds. And we allow it to happen because we've been programmed And like, I'm as guilty of it as anybody. I was programmed. I was a drifter. I knew like something was really wrong with the world. And as a child, I searched for answers. I can remember asking, like, Mommy, why does there have to be war? Seeing, you know, Desert Storm on the news, and asking my teacher, it's like, why is this happening? Asking my church leaders, like, why is there war? I don't understand what these people are fighting about, or why everybody just can't get along. Like, you looked around, like at school, people at school all managed to get along, you know, and the community, like people in the community typically manage to get along. There's like, for the most part, people are able to live in peace and harmony. So I never understood it. And I think that a big part of the reason why I became such a like intense drifter, living a life, no purpose whatsoever, you know, being an alcoholic and a drug addict, a lot of that stemmed from the programming that I had, that most of us are given from birth. We're sat in front of the TV and we're sat in a desk at school, and we're taught this is the way the world is. And when you have questions like, why is there war? Nobody has any answers for you. That's a like really important question. And as a kid, asking this really important question and nobody giving me any kind of good answer or any kind of like reasonable explanation of what the heck is going on in this world really caused me, I believe, caused me to make the choice to waste a lot of my life. And I chose to waste my life because I didn't know any better. I was programmed. And it's only from the time that I was able to sober up that I've actually broken free from that programming. And thanks to the internet, which I'm going to talk about a whole bunch in a minute, thanks to the internet, I was actually able to get some of those answers to my question. I now have a very good understanding of why there are wars. Why? This simple, follow the money. It's simply because there's certain people that are so greedy that in their quest for money and power, they disregard the value of human life. And that does happen. It is only a very, very, very few people that believe that behave that way, that are involved in those actions. Very few people. However, those few people have immense power. They own the information that we're given. They own the media outlets. But because of the internet, we're able to find information that previously wasn't available. Like when my programming took place, there was no internet to fact check the news stories. The only way that you could fact check what they were telling you is to get on a plane and go to Iraq where Desert Storm was occurring and see what was actually happening and talk to the people that were actually there. The media does not serve any purpose except to keep that programming instilled in our minds and in our hearts. And so for myself, being able to break free from that has allowed me to get some of the answers to questions that I've had ever since I was a little kid. Like nobody told me when I asked that question as a child that, well, there's certain people that are super greedy, that make a lot of money selling weapons, that make a lot of money doing military contracts, that make a lot of money from the act of war. And that's why we have war. Nobody told me that. Did you know that? I don't know. Maybe you're aware of these things, but I don't think that they really talk about that in the news, that about this handful of people that make all this money off of the wars that are waged. And that's why it happens, because it's profitable for them and they want it to happen. So they manipulate people, they manipulate whole governments of countries in order to make that happen, in order to create that money. And that's not to like bash wealthy people, because most wealthy people, most people who have accumulated an abundance of resources have done so by providing good for the world and not this destruction that this small group of people has created. And so anyway, the internet has totally opened my eyes and my mind to the possibilities, to the abundance that actually exists, to the fact that we've been programmed, and that what they're teaching us in school and on television is total BS, and how we can fight against it. And so I found this sorry, I found this amazing community of people that I want to share with you right now. I was talking about earlier, there's events that we have called Fight the Forces of Evil. And at these events, there's like this whole army of people that has broken free from the media programming to see the abundance that truly exists all around them, and using their talents and abilities to capitalize on that abundance and recognize that abundance and just have awareness. It's amazing. I've never been around such a group of aware people anywhere else on the planet that I've gone. So I'm talking about, if you're on the page, you'll see below there's a description and a button to push, because in 10 minutes, I'm going to end the Hangout and I'm going to be jumping on the Empower Network call called the Empower Hour. And you can join us. It'll be starting in 10 minutes. As soon as I end the Hangout, you just want to click that button and it's going to take you over to our Empower Hour. And so what the Empower Hour is, it's a weekly call that we have that lets people know about who we are and what we do. And what Empower Network, who we are and what we do, I think is basically we are people that are on a mission of empowerment. We want to empower people all around the globe to break their programming and reprogram their mind with information that will lead them towards making their dreams reality. And I can't even start to tell you the stories of people who have come to the Empower Network and their lives have been completely changed by it. There's my friend, ex-Hooter waitress, Dee Varengia, and her husband, Justin, who went from struggling to pay their rent in a $450 apartment to earning over $1.5 million in commissions with the Empower Network. They have been able to create a life beyond their wildest dreams. Dee shared with me and in a group of women that she was, like I say, she used to be a Hooters waitress. She's twice dropped out of university and definitely did not see herself as someone who would ever be successful. And now today, her and her husband are literally millionaires. There's the story of Lawrence Tam, who was a mechanical engineer, and he was able to retire his wife from her job as an accountant and then be able to retire himself at the age of 33 from mechanical engineering. And he continues to be a part-time internet marketer while he is a full-time dad to his 3 kids. And not only has Lawrence earned nearly $2 million in commissions with Empower Network, he's been able to give back in some really big ways by drilling water wells for people in Kenya. They just broke ground on a Christian school in Uganda that Lawrence Tam heavily donated to. There's the story of, there's so many stories, but there's a story of another millionaire, him and Alex Zubarev and his wife Anna. They are Russian immigrants. They came to the US not even being able to speak English. And after a few years with the Empower Network, they've earned over $1 million in commissions with English as their second language, and with so many other obstacles. Alex always tells the story about how he was in debt when he started with the Empower Network, and today he's earned over $1 million in commissions. And the stories just go on and on. There's over 15 verified millionaires in the company. There's hundreds of people who've been able to create 6-figure incomes for themselves and their families, and there's thousands of people who have been able to leave a job that they weren't passionate about to work part-time on the internet with the Empower Network. So it's just about 5 minutes left. I'm super excited. I always get really excited for any of the events Empower Network does, whether they're our awesome weekly online events or our upcoming live in-person event, which will happen in April in Nashville, Tennessee, where we'll all get together and reunite like a big happy family to share the latest cutting edge strategies for marketing a business on an internet. So why do you want to turn into the Empower Hour? Well, first of all, you'll hear more stories of more people that have been able to achieve more success with the Empower Network than absolutely anywhere else on the internet. In addition to that, you're going to learn strategies and techniques that for marketing online that will either help you with the current business that you're involved with, or that can help you to start your own business. If you've never had any experience in business, that doesn't matter, because the Empower Network has a step-by-step system. And if you just follow the instructions and take one step at a time and do exactly what these internet millionaires teach you to do, your results are pretty much guaranteed, because it's a simple blueprint. And they lay that out for you. And as long as you follow the blueprint, you're going to build what they're teaching you to build, which is basically $1 million income from the internet, which is like so awesome and possible for everybody. I'm going to do it, and I believe you can do it, and there's countless other people that will do it. And together, we can all do it. But besides, being able to earn $1 million and make all this money, what is even more valuable to me and to you and to absolutely anybody out there is this sense of community. This group of people that have broken free from their programming in order to create a vision for themselves, for their family, for the community, and for the whole world. There's so many people that are involved with the Empower Network that share our vision of freedom. And maybe not specifically our vision of freedom, but almost everybody I talk to in the Empower Network wants to see people doing what they love, pursuing their dreams and their passions, and letting go of jobs that do not fulfill them. And so if you're someone that's, at a job that doesn't necessarily fulfill you, you'll want to plug into this community and listen to the call, because that's what it's really all about. It's really all about empowering people to follow their dreams, to stop chasing money and start chasing after your goals. And I think the most powerful lesson that I've got from Empower Network is gratitude. It's just being grateful for where you are. I'm grateful that I was drifting. I'm grateful that I had the experience of being an alcoholic and a drug addict, because it allowed me to have a more powerful awakening. If I hadn't been so deeply sleeping, the awakening that I've had, thanks to the Empower Network, it wouldn't have been as powerful. There's a purpose, there's a meaning behind absolutely everything that happens to us. And we can be grateful for both our tragedies and our triumphs in life. It's all put in our path for a reason, to lead us to something, and probably something greater than we even imagine for ourselves. So if you want to, if you're into disruptive technology, the internet is where it's at. The internet has disrupted so many things in our lives and just made the world a better place. Recently, Walmart and Sears have been reorganizing their companies and closing stores. And the reason that has happened is because the economy is shifting from brick and mortar to click and order. All those things you go to buy at Walmart can now be purchased online. And a lot of people are making that transition from going to the store and looking for what they want to finding it online and having it delivered to their door. And that's just going to go more and more in that direction because of the convenience. People love it. People want it. People don't want to have the inconvenience of having to travel somewhere to get something. They want it brought to them. It's not rocket science. Internet marketing is taking the world by storm. Not a surprise. And so you want to get on the Empower Network right away and get in on the information that they're sharing about this major shift in the marketplace. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. I want everybody out there to know, I'm sorry Larry couldn't come back and join us, but we'll talk more on Thursday. I want everybody out there to know that I'm a firm believer that in this life, absolutely anybody can be, do, and have anything they want, or we can have everything we want. And I choose everything, and I hope you will too, because you can. So click the button and listen to the Empower Network to find out how. Have an amazing day, and if I don't see you in the future, I'll see you out in the pasture. Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.